Now, the real journey started when I belonged to the Catholic Foreign Mission Society of the United States as a layperson. Now, what I experienced there that was completely new to me was something called liberation theology. Now, in essence, liberation theology was simply about developing an applicable spirituality for people who were marginalized, oppressed, or discriminated against in any manner. Leonardo Boff said anyone who wants to elaborate relevant liberation theology must be prepared to go into the examination hall of the poor. Only after sitting on the benches of the humble will a person be entitled to enter a school of higher learning. It was from this kind of training in this theology and consciousness that it led to that I then moved from this place in Ossining, New York, into the inner cities of New York, into the South Bronx. So I found myself in the Bronx in 1977, and believe me, the South Bronx was very run down. It was a very violent time for everybody living there. Like most inner cities, it was very painful and difficult. People had difficult lives. It was hard for the children. And yet somehow people played and had fun there, which amazed me. Now, I was a little bit amazed at the effects of living in the South Bronx was among this extreme poverty that I had never experienced before. And what I realized is it was making me angry inside. And I was angry at social injustice, at politics, at all these different things, even the violence that was going on within the city itself. And so I could feel that anger building. And one of the things that I was reading at the time was Martin Luther King Jr. And he made a profound quote that was very helpful for me at the time. He said, "I've decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear." And that was powerful for me because it told me that even in these situations that are difficult, I still have to internally try to maintain a disposition of love for all the circumstances and all the people that I was involved in. But unbeknownst to me, a very surprising turn of events happened to me there. Mother Teresa's group, the Missionaries of Charity, came to the South Bronx and wanted to find a place to live. So I helped them drive around the city so that they could find a place where they could live. We found them a place to live that was close to where I was already living, and so I used to go over to their chapel all the time and pray with them. Without really expecting it or planning on it, Mother Teresa and her sisters had a very big effect on me, on how I was envisioning myself working in the world and helping people. I remember a quote from her that I think I found very useful at the time. She said, "Charity isn't about pity, it is about love. And not all of us can do great things, but we can all do small things with great love. The fruit of love is service, which is compassion in action." Now, I want to stop here for a minute because when I met Mother Teresa, and this had nothing to do with her being famous or anything like that, I met a human being that I had never experienced before in my life. And I didn't know what it was about her, but there was something so different about her. And I was kind of mesmerized, not in an adoring kind of way. I saw in her the way to be a human being that I'd never seen in anybody else. And I had to struggle to figure out what was it about her that was so different. Because in some ways, I wanted to emulate those qualities, not her. I wanted to possess a depth of humanity that I saw that she was able to possess. So I reflected on this a long time, and there were a number of different qualities that I think are worth mentioning here because it has nothing to do with Mother Teresa or me. It has to do, I think, with all human beings on the planet who struggle to live a life of their own sincere passion of why we're here on the planet, what we want to do, and how do we want to live our lives. And so she influenced me in that regard of how to be a better human being. So first of all, we all know she was compassionate. She really did believe that the most beautiful thing in the world to do was to simply hold people while they were sick, while they were dying, or if they were just destitute and homeless and without any kind of love, she really physically just would hold them because she believed that people in their lowest experiences of life simply needed someone who could look into their eyes and they knew that they were seen and cared for by somebody else when they felt like the rest of the world did not see them or care for them. The other quality, which I struggle even to articulate now, was humility. She was very humble, even though she was famous in other people's eyes. In her own sense of herself, she didn't see herself as famous. And I remember walking with her many times, actually, just down the street. And I was always amazed at how grounded, for lack of a better word, she seemed to be. It's almost like she was walking on the earth and she was attached to the earth. No, she was very selfless in many ways, meaning she didn't have a lot of comfort. She didn't even want a lot of comfort. She often talked about having less actually made her more fulfilled and happy. She didn't need things. She was just happy at being within herself and doing what she was committed to doing. She encouraged other people to do it because she believed that was one of the direct ways to true inner peace and happiness. She was very faithful to the belief that every person should be treated with dignity, respect, and love. That was it. She was committed to that. And she tried to do that with every single person she ever met. When I was with her in the chapel one time and we're sitting together and we're just sitting in silence, and I knew that the work that this woman did, I could not do. It was too difficult. I could not work at that level of poverty and destitution that she was requiring her sisters to work at, etc. And one of the things I saw was that her and her sisters worked many, many hours a day, but they were required to be in the chapel in prayer for 5 hours a day. And that paradox of having her activity of serving people and then having this deep reflection of being in prayer confused me. So I asked her, I said, why do you require your sisters to pray for 5 hours a day? And she said, if they don't have that depth of prayer and the depth of inner journey that leads us to, they will never be able to do the ministry that we're asking them to do. They wouldn't be able to do it at that depth. And I realized, sadly for myself, that I didn't have that depth within inside myself, and that's why I couldn't perform the ministry at the depth with which she and her sisters did.